Hello, hello, hello. Alrighty, let's jump right into this. So 1 second. Where's my clock? Mhm. All right. Okay. So have everything pulled up. Very strong chart, obviously, as you know. I have lots of experience dealing with the combination of Aries and Scorpio. Um, I know, I mean, it's just a very powerful, willful combination. There's this element, especially, as a man, um, with a Scorpio moon. I feel like you coming to me, getting a reading without needing to know anything about you is that it's very rare. You should pat yourself on the back. For men with Scorpio moons to, I don't want to say make it, but to get to a place to where they're contemplating spirituality. Now, of course, yeah, I mean, Scorpio Moon is a very spiritual placement in itself, but oftentimes there's just um, a lot there that makes it difficult for them to not go towards the more devious side of Scorpio. So you get the sun rising, born at 6:45. Amazing. Um, and then the North Node is with Saturn, well, closer Neptune, but the ruler is in the same house. And yeah, so I guess what I would say is that there's a clear. So actually, let me look at cap, capsule, capsule. That's okay. So it's like the same Capistrano. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. So when someone's born very high north or very south, I have a debate um related to what house system. I always use Placidus, but when someone's born in a place like Estonia or Sweden, or just really, really south, the house, especially like Iceland, right? Like the house has become a certain way, right? Where it makes me, it makes certain houses massive. Now there's times where it's really like to an extreme. In your case, it's kind of like limit, but um I like to see what it looks like in equal house to see, okay, like what's changed the most. Okay. Well, I'll probably bounce back and forth, but I'll start with people. So yeah, a lot stays the same, which is good. Anyways, so yeah, so having North Node in here, in this system would be in the 10th house, which would make sense, right? Because it's Capricorn. Regardless, like there's this big element. I read your email. Let me pull it back up too, just to have it in front of me. Let's see. You could, yeah, because you said indecision in the contradictions in my natal chart. I have a hard time making more long-term decisions and choosing which really overtakes these things in my psychology. Gotcha. Yeah, I read that before. I just want to make sure. I always take a quadruple check every single little detail. Yes. Okay. So, um, this is the classic South Node in Cancer type of discourse. Because you know North Node in Capricorn season, there is a karmic impetus in this lifetime, and I see that with the moon square Saturn, sun square Neptune, Uranus, Venus opposite Pluto. Yeah. So I would be pretty shocked if there was this strong parental, like oftentimes people who have the North Node in Capricorn, at least they're here to really be their own metaphorical fathers in this lifetime. And when you think of South Node in Cancer, from water to earth, it's about learning determination, it's about learning strength, learning power, learning not power, learning determination. And oftentimes people who have this do not have that strong male role model. They kind of have to do it on their own. um I see the sun Uranus, perhaps like born in Estonia. Maybe moved to the UK seeking, or not UK, but I think it said Ireland, right? Am I crazy? Dublin, right? I don't know. It's just that. Yeah. Well, I mean, one of my best friends, she's from Latvia, and she moved um, to London and made something of herself. And yeah, it's just that Capricorn energy, right? Where um, there's really this part of you that doesn't want to and I don't like to like say like things that sound like I'm dissing anyone's family or anything like that, right? It's really just more so who the individual is and what they would like to get out of life. And, you know, so South Node in Capricorn in Cancer, when I try to break it down, it's something like someone who has a past life karmic tendency to have trouble getting themselves far away from home, and that is more, that could be looked at physically or metaphorically, right? um Imagine like the person who's just unbelievably gifted, right? Let's say they're a painter. I don't know. Let's say they're a singer. They love to sing. They have the best voice ever, one of the best voices ever. They're gifted by God, and they have, this opportunity to go and take the risk to go to the big city, to go, but that would be part of that process would be leaving behind, not like abandoning, but going towards something that's less sure, where your support system isn't there. Like it's like the metaphor, like sometimes Cancer South nodes, it's like there's that tendency of needing someone to have held, um to hold your hand. And in this life, it's like, nah. So karmic circumstances will be a certain way where you find yourself in a position where you're like, usually with this type of alignment, I'm different, you know, like perhaps, perhaps there's still a lot of love and a love of going back to your, if I just saw that Ireland popped up, but you know, there a lot of times, yeah, there's just like this need to kind of go out into the big world and make it on your own. So you talk a lot about it makes me, kind of think about that Gemini Mars and how the mind, like it mixed with like the Cancer South node, how when we are like Cancer South node can often be quite indecisive, right? It's ruled by the moon, which goes up and down. And um the thing is that a lot of times it bases its decisions. It has a tendency of allowing the decisions to have been based too much on emotion, um, not enough on logic. And yeah, so like in my example of like the musician, it's like that musician who just ends up just becoming like staying close to home and never fulfilling their potential because they had that fear. So in a nutshell, this is all about becoming an adult from a spiritual perspective. Um, Taking responsibility for your actions, for the outcomes, um, using the well-developed intuition that comes from. Remember, it's not about throw the South Node out. We're keeping the South Node. We're keeping the positive part of it. Um, but not, but really thinking through the decisions, right? Long range thinking, planning, and self discipline. So it seems like a lot of what you wrote about how to deal with indecision. The thing is, like, So I talk about this a lot, and this goes beyond astrology. Every single human has indecision. There's just some people who, I guess, lean into the risk more, you know? Like if I can be frank with you right now, I have insane indecision. I've got um my ex who I still, we're still very there's still a lot there. She lives in Romania where I used to live. I live in Argentina. Um I think that a lot of times what happens is that, based on that question, it's like, okay, well, we can look at the natal chart and we can see what's going to make the soul feel the best. Because I feel like this is like there's this idea of like, what am I supposed to do? Someone tell me, right? And um that doesn't exist. And we grow up in this educational system, et cetera, and things are kind of lined up for us. But then we get into, and then real life situations. This, right? You're past the Saturn return and whatnot. There's not really any rules, and it starts with soul versus ego. That's step one. Now, I wrote about this in my book. If you're ever interested in reading my book, it's called Pisces Live Nine Lives. It's on all Amazons internationally. I don't really talk about that much, but it's not really about me. It's not like a biography or anything. Maybe like two chapters about me. But yeah, it starts with like, ego versus soul. Um as a Scorpio moon, there's a level of depth that's needed in day-to-day life, right? Um, the individual needs to be able to, whether it's in relationships, their works, preferably, they want to be engaged with solving mysteries or some part of life that kind of just keeps them like where they can like use that detective Scorpio Moon is a psychologist because they have to grow up so fast. um Oftentimes like that mix of like Capricorn North Node and Scorpio Moon, it's someone who, yeah, who have to see the more darker side of um the human condition, human psyche, human psychology from a young age, right? So, in this world where most people are headed towards like doing, and I understand like economically it's a very, like, for most people you can't just be like, oh yeah, go take a year off, you know learn astrology, or learn this or learn that, go to psychology school, right? It's like it's difficult, but um I would say that most indecision, can be like with respect to the nodal axis, can be, especially with Chiron there too. Chiron in the fourth house, with a south node, could really be linked to some real black sheep energy in the family, right? Really feeling misunderstood and not feeling validated for your way of seeing the world and kind of what you want out of life. So, you're someone who like there's a lot of innovation. There's a lot of freedom. So back to what I was saying, kind of going through that process, that thought process of like, okay, like I want to, get all this money so I can impress these people. This I'm not saying this is you. I'm just saying like the normal thought process. But my soul wants to help people. My soul wants to be in a position where what I'm doing is really benefiting humanity in some way, and through that benefiting of humanity, I'm making myself feel better because I've seen it with a lot of people, especially, and I didn't even see this in your chart, and I started talking. So this is when it's real. Um, I did not even see this shit in your chart before I was like gonna start talking about it. Like I knew maybe I unconsciously knew it was there, but especially using this house system, like I mean, yeah, like regardless, right? The midheaven is there. Uranus and Neptune in the 10th house of any placements. I need to make an astro hit for that. People with Neptune and Uranus in the 10th house are nearly always people who find some level of difficulty when it comes to career. um, until they can find something that where they're able to help people and that opens them up opens up opens them up to their authentic self into the process of individuation. So nearly everyone I've seen with this combination ends up doing something that might even be looked at as somewhat sacrificial in the sense of choosing soul over ego. But there can be this feeling of really feeling lost in the career or in what they're supposed to be doing for quite a long time. But and they try different things, but things just tend to not feel right until they find something where they're helping people or that really connects them to the collective unconscious in some way. So yeah, what I just said. um, so Neptune in the 10th house has that effect where it can kind of cloud the perspective around like, what someone's doing career wise. And with Uranus, it's like wanting to do something that's very unconventional, right? Wanting to take that road less traveled. So, yeah, I've seen this so many times. Like my own brother has this, right? And he's born 1993, and he just goes, um it's like this constant, like just not really knowing, what to do. And he has a lot more difficult aspects around hold on, around indecision. But then it's like, okay, maybe you're not talking about career as much, right? I feel like you are there. It could be relational too. Which way to go because it's controversial. Yeah, okay. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. So that's what's so common with the Neptune 10th house, right? Um, is that we live in an ego based society, but yeah, oftentimes with Neptune 10th house, it's like that yearning to be of service through the profession, and like feeling that like sense of loss around certain like doing one thing for some time and then it just doesn't like something about it just doesn't feel right. Which then Neptune rules fog, right? So someone in that position can feel a level of fog and confusion around career. Now, also because you look at the planets in the 10th around, okay, like so it could be a career in something that's linked to spirituality or something that's linked to art or just like making the world, adding beauty and peace to the world. And then with Uranus, together with, that's about adding something to society, right? Worthwhile, um, very original, often quite unconventional. So it can add a level of restlessness within one profession, like that feeling of like not wanting to conform and do something where you're just like a wage slave. People with this, they tend to be very, very, very aware. Um, like it's very hard for them to do something, have a soulless career, if that makes sense. Like, yes, the bills that have to be paid, but like what really helps is having something. So what happens, with that like Mars and Gemini, let's just say, right, is that in the third house especially, that's like the someone who's extremely curious. So someone who is learning this, learning that, learning this, learning that, dabbling, 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 um, which is great. You find a lot in that doing that type of thing. But I think being able to have the money maker, depending on your situation, of course, right? The money maker, and then also the passion that eventually the goal is for the passion to become the money maker, right? Where there's something that let's say it's numerology or whatever, right? Something that you've done the Capricorn research on and that it fits you well. Because you're a sun rising. That's like one of the better placements in all astrology. That's someone who's meant to shine, who is here to be a leader, right? And in past lives, you've let other people take your shine away. Um, so another big thing is Mercury square the nodes. Um, so I this one, so when I see this, hold up, three, and then different sign, but still 3, 4, yeah. So okay, let's break this down. So I don't give like past life. I'm not I'm not looking at your chart and saying you were living in this place in your past life. No, I'm telling you potential archetypal themes, that can kind of paint a metaphorical picture in your head about like let's just say like the musician one, right? Well, then you add the square to Mercury and to the moon, and there's this karmic theme of putting other people ahead of yourself, right? Always being like it's like the mom who's the best, the one of the best painters ever. But because she's so the mom, that's her role, Cancer, the family, right? She sacrifices, herself for the family, which is, I'm not saying it's bad. Of course, like she's a mom, but what this chart is saying is that there's been a lot of past lives where that's been the case. Now, in this life, the consequences karmically of having done that are one, a square to Mercury in the south node represents someone who's come in. So it makes that moon opposite um, Mercury extremely important. Um, extremely important because it becomes what I call a karmic aspect. Talk about that in a sec. So South Node Cancer already, like I said, can like the shadow side of that can be like someone who plays the victim, someone who who runs away from the spot from kind of making it from their dharma, I guess, accomplishing their highest dharma, and who, you know, they're ready, it's like in this lifetime you're ready for the big leagues. Like, I don't know how else to say it. Like, you're ready to take that next step. Now with Mercury square, that is someone who has come into this lifetime with self-limiting beliefs. And that has been made even more difficult via the family. I count that square with Chiron in Cancer, aka the family. So a very quick, sharp thinker, deep thinker, deep feeler, eighth house Pluto, psychologically, very, very deep. Third house Gemini, 29 degrees, just people get jealous of people who have that wit to them and that mental capacity, that ability to kind of just keep going. But this is the thing. You would have come into this lifetime with different, it's part of the goal is to decouple from, I call them the voices, you can call them the voices in your head. You can refer to them more as interjects in psychology, right? But that is Mercury is our mind. It's how we speak. So it could be a communication issue that maybe like happened earlier in life, or like a right. It could be an insecurity that came up earlier in life around one's thought of their own intelligence that maybe got perpetuated by their culture or their family, right? But the most common for me is to see that and be like, okay, this is someone who, because they cut themselves short of their full potential in their past life, they were not, with a moon square, they were not able to fully engage with their emotional side. Like it feels like it's like a very traditional family karma. And you know, Cancer energy can be very, it's like everyone, it talks about how emotional Cancer and Pisces are, but they can also be the most emotionally hidden and repressed, traditional, so with the moon being in Scorpio, right, its fall position, with square from Saturn, it's very unlikely that the emotional support was there in this life. The confidence needed of a Scorpio moon, to be able to fully engage properly with the environment, right? To be able to fully, let their true authentic self out. Now, I'm still building this. So the moon is obviously our feminine element. So if that is where the nodes, to me, then that is bringing in a karma where whatever happened, and remember, we don't come into this life, dealing with every single past life at once. But let's just say this is like a few past lives, right? There was this lack of dealing with the emotional side, almost a giving up of the emotional of having like an emotional connection to one's emotions and to one's dreams and to who one truly is, separate from their family unit, separate from their tribe, separate from the community that they come from, that they have so much loyalty to. But even if there's great love, there can be, come great pain, right? Like if someone is has so much loyalty and they love their family and their country or their background, their culture so much, but who they are and who they're trying to become as a person is so far away from what that tradition wants them to be, right? Then that's suffering. So that's kind of like a major theme I would see there. And then what happens on an intellectual level when that same thing when one is pushed in a position where they're supposed to speak in certain ways, where there's certain ideas that they're supposed to not talk about or not question. And the person as a soul, right? The moon is the soul, Scorpio's soul is meant to question everything, is meant to want to get to the bottom of everything, right? Is not here to be surface level. And then you have that Gemini, right, where it's that individual that's very, the Aries rising, that very headstrong sun, right? So then the person, there's like this real intensity in you, right? This real dedication to knowing the truth, because in a past life there was consequences when you didn't speak up or when you didn't, you know, like when you didn't go towards Capricorn, which is I'm I love you, mom, I love you, dad, or like just, but I'm going my own direction. It has really nothing to do with anything that I know or that's related to my culture. I still, it's not a diss at Estonia. I love every country and I think you have to go there, but it's more so like it doesn't really matter about the countries. It's just I'm going to, it could be from Ireland to Estonia. It's more so like I'm going to go discover something that and make something of myself and take that risk, that hasn't been taken. And a lot of times when someone has the square of Saturn and Moon and hard aspects of the sun also from outers, it's like they, like the square of Uranus and Neptune, um, especially like as someone who has like a first house, like rising sun, you know, it's almost as if there could have been some issue with the father if like there's those planets from the 10th. I don't like to do the mother father thing, but like I'll just try it here, I guess. Um, like there could have been some, just from the in terms of the early nurturing, like some real perfectionist energy. Like, you have to, like the love. A lot of times with the Saturn moon, it's like the love felt very conditional as opposed to unconditional. And as you know, a Scorpio moon needs a lot of love, a lot of caring, a lot of nurturing, a lot of it needs to really truly know the world is a safe place, right? So when you add Saturn there, and it can kind of dampen the emotional expression. So when someone like this gets away from, like kind of gets to be on their own, because Scorpio moon is also very private. So Scorpio moon really, really thrives when alone. Not all the time, but very secretive people in the sense that like, and I'm like that too. Like, you know, it's kind of hard to grow because you feel you're such a sponge of energy and you feel everything that like when you're in your own energy more or there's like a lighter energy with the people around you, it's just so much easier. And then you're able to work on all your other stuff from a distance. Um, yeah. So, um, yeah. So that Sun square that Sun square Neptune is massive. It's massive in this chart, and what it does, especially because the sun rising, you have to be super because is it square? Yeah, so you just have to be really, really careful. I was just talking about this. Um, when it comes to like who you surround yourself with, um, but also how you present yourself, because there can be like a lot of misunderstandings. Um, there can be this level of people thinking that you're like a lot of projection onto you, especially, from the family, but even in the workplace also, right? Um, Sometimes it's like a double-edged sword when you have like sun rising, because like you're seen as this leader. You're seen, Aries is a very strong energy. So like in certain professional situations, depending on what you do, there can be this intensity that where people might be unconsciously intimidated by you, especially with Scorpio, Um, so yeah. But like sun also represents that life direction, and a sun rising person is often someone who's meant to, you know, be, who wants to work for themselves, who wants to kind of like be the captain, it needs to be the captain of their own ship, right? But then the sun square Neptune can put up a lot of battles that one must overcome to really feel strong, to feel confident. And yeah, you just have to. You can't put yourself in like potentially jeopardizing positions where, for example, you could be like judged for doing something that you didn't do, or people can like think like, oh, this he said this, he did this, but really you didn't, right? Um, so yeah, it's also one where you just have to really like it's just harder to kind of get with like kind of confidence, self-esteem, all that. And obviously everything with Neptune, you got to watch out for escapism and stuff of that nature. Um, but yeah, that's really what Neptune is, and the answer to Neptune in the 12th house is doing something where through you doing it, and when I say like usually it's career, but everyone has their own situation, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do, where you feel that connection with the collective unconscious, right? Like ultimately that is what heals someone who has this type of aspect. Um, because by helping someone, you help yourself, and you feel in touch with all that is. And that's where it goes back to what I was saying about like the ego versus soul. While like the ego might want the most money possible, all that, the soul might want to help. Yeah, might want to help people. Um, yeah, I think like anyone that has like Neptune square Sun, a trick I tell people is to take your phone out and film yourself talking. You have to, and you don't show anyone, but Neptune is ruled by cameras. So when you're feeling confused, you just like take your phone out and film yourself like you're like a YouTuber um, making a vlog. Um, and yeah, like I said, because it rules, or like in front of a mirror, Neptune rules mirrors, and cameras are mirrors. So that sounds crazy, but the amount of people, with Pisces placements, Neptune doing anything I told to do this and that's worked, it's really something special. So yeah. Um, second. Hold on. It's not a sure quick. Sorry about that. What was that? Yeah. So I guess like going back to, you know, the nodes as we do. They're like with that Neptune, square sun, like there could be, like I said, there could be issues with the father. There could be issues with, like situations in your life where you're forced to stand up for yourself, right? And the Cancer South Node obviously, like oftentimes is there's that tendency to give too much of yourself to other people, right? So part of the North Node, what does Capricorn represent? Saturn. Saturn is rock, boundaries. So one of the biggest lessons karmically for North Node and Capricorn is boundaries. Sometimes people will take advantage of the empathetic nature when Neptune is square the sun, especially earlier in life. There can be a lack of, like I said, self-esteem, feeling like you know where you're going, but also feeling like you like it's like that person where like everyone can see you and how great you are, but like there's people like that where you're like, man, if they could only see themselves and how great and how everyone else sees them. It's like that. So it's like that person has to really work. And that's why I said the thing with cameras can really help. But also obviously psychotherapy, just anything that gets you kind of talking and opening up and understanding yourself better is essential for Scorpio Moon, especially too. Um, so yeah, like you see the theme here, the karmic theme is that past lives where you've given too much of yourself to other people, and then that's had, that's kept you away from your own goals and your goal. Yeah. So I would say a lot of like the answer to your email would come from the Neptune in Uranus in 10th house and kind of what that does, because it's like you're not going to be taking the normal career route. It's going to be something specific that's going to make you happy or make your soul feel good. And then the fact that that squares that sun, that identity, that essence of who you are, who is really like, Aries, the sign of the warrior, Aries rising, like that person that like, Aries Scorpio like is like the most, it's double Mars, Pluto. It's like that person can get through anything. And a lot of times they've gone through the craziest shit, but then sometimes they don't even like they like every person who has this combination I know has been through intense shit in life and nothing can break them. But sometimes they forget to tell themselves, yo, like I'm a fucking badass. Like, you know what I mean? Like shit. Like I made it through some stuff that like, I always get the metaphor of like it's like when you're drowning and you get on the, and that's kind of like my metaphor for spirituality. We're drowning. Every spiritual person starts, has initiation somehow, right? Which is like either through their family, something that happens to them, things that happen to them, ways that they are early, whatever. And then they get this, they're sinking, and they get this life raft, which is, you know, whatever spirituality means to them. Once on that life raft, then, you know, the waves stop and things clear out, become more calm. But then it's so easy to forget how difficult things were, right? And to give yourself that credit. And then oftentimes, things get hard again, right? Life comes back. And the person's retested, you see. So giving yourself credit is really huge. So yeah, it's interesting you say that in your email, because one of the biggest challenges for Capricorn North nodes is to make plans and stick to them, to really like make decisions based, and kind of like Saturn Capricorn, especially Saturn being in your 10th in this system, right? There's gonna be this great potential for success, but it would probably happen, around now, like post Saturn return, because there would be all these restrictions that would come up around your career. But you are someone that, like, with that, who is meant to be a leader, who's meant to be someone that people look up to. But a lot of times it's like lots of tests, like god damn, like 3 steps forward and I get pushed 4 steps back by the universe, right? Um, but yeah, another huge thing, like I would say, is like don't to not sacrifice your ambition, to not like minimize yourself for the sake of others or to make other people feel, because like as you're a Scorpio moons are, they have an emotional need. They're here to transform. They're here to go through many different lifetimes within this one life, right? So like I told you before, a high vibe Scorpio moon might go back and see people that they grew up with, and I see this too much, right? Where that they want to pull that person back to that older version of them because they get intimidated by the growth. It happens unconsciously, whether it's old friends or people in the family. Um, but that's where the boundaries come in, and one, especially with that Gemini third house, one can be very strategic with one's boundaries, right? Um, so yeah. Um, Yeah, I think a lot of times with this, like karmically, it's just like, yeah, someone who is always the nurturer, cap, Cancer. And when you're always the nurturer, where you're always the one that has to take care of everyone, then you're not able to kind of receive that love, and go through that emotional development that you need, right? Um, a lot of times, yeah, people, like I said, people with this middle placement, they come from families where you know, members were not emotionally available. And yeah, so the goal is to not recreate that later in life. Um, so yeah, like I guess what I would say, like with Southland and Cancer too, to expand on that, is that sometimes it makes it really hard. Like there can be another extreme where it's like they have like such a good childhood where, and if Chiron's there, so difficult aspects, so I kind of doubt it, but like where like they're afraid to grow up, stuck in childhood, or it's like just psychological, where it's just like too easy to hurt their feelings. Like I've seen this a few times in people where they were just too sheltered, right? And they just like crave that feeling of being taken care of, and kind of like just giving up on themselves too easily, stuff like that, right? So that's like the negative traits of that energy, right? Being like control freaks, manipulative, emotionally manipulative, like victim shit, like I said before, right? But like, a big part of this also is learning to let go, right? And accept, that all we can do is control ourselves. And yeah, like I said, like to with the square of Mercury, it's like learning to communicate, especially communicate your needs and your boundaries in that Aries way. See, this is the thing. You have the Aries energy, which is that most powerful fire energy, but it's square Neptune. So it's like the ascendant and the sun are squared. So it's like getting through that. It's like part of the mission is like finding the Aries energy within you, finding that warrior fire spirit energy, because um, you know, and maybe you have, right? Because when you do, people don't fuck with you. um, but yeah, yeah. So it's kind of like like a double edged sword, like being super sensitive to the needs of other people, but other people aren't like that. So it's like a lot of times, like the Cancer South nodes, they give a lot more than they receive. Um, so yeah, I think like let me think about this for a second. Yeah, so typically what happens, like so a Cancer South Node a lot of times like, they want that protective shell. And a lot of times earlier in life they seek that out in someone else. And later on, they learn to kind of grow that on their own, right? It's like that boundaries, So and the thing about that too is that it actually really helps with relationships, right? When you have strong boundaries, you know, I can tell you, especially because like I'm Venus square Pluto, you're Venus opposite Pluto. We'll get into that in a sec, but that makes love life crazy, especially when younger, right? And but you grow a lot through your love life, right? Um, your love life romance is really like this way where you can kind of judge your growth. What did I wrote? I just posted about it. I said people with Venus Pluto aspects such as blah 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 tend to morph into a completely different person after each relationship. Relationships are the arena of life where they get to see their shadow and go through the process of death, rebirth, and transformation. Oftentimes, there's a lot of abandonment issues with people who have these hard aspects, and it can be very hard to let go. But their relationships are extremely karmic and huge catalysts for their spiritual transformation, and you're able to how far someone has come spiritually by the progress shown by the quality of their relationships as time has gone on. So yeah, so that's kind of how it be. I'll get into more into that one a little bit, but I mean that kind of sums it up really well. But like there tends to be like a lot of shadow that comes out in relationships, and you know um especially with the Scorpio moon, seventh house too. Yeah, that would be someone who relationships could be, especially when you add all this, right? Where it's like the potential for codependency or like trying to find like a nurturer in the relationship, right? So, but yeah, like when that happens, yeah, it's self-limiting, right? So, um, learning to be your own metaphoric father, um, while also developing uh that adult self that's able to go out in the external world and get the job done, right? So, yeah, anyone yeah, so then there's the whole like preferring facts over feelings, and kind of like anyone with like a water south node like to an earth north node, they're here to like kind of become more balanced with, I don't want to say like reality, I don't know, just like um just being able to kind of see things for how they are sometimes, especially people. And yeah, I've definitely seen like dependence on others is very common with this one. um and when the moon's in the seventh, also, yeah, like there can be like codependency issues, right? So yeah, that can create very, very intense, relationships that like a lot of people with that type of energy, like there's like some type of abandonment issue, and this kind of shadow side that can come out, where there's like such a fear of losing the person that and it is an opposition. It's different than square where it can actually be from the other person. It can attract those types of like very dark people when the person has not healed, but as they heal and get higher up spiritually, they start to see like, damn, if I actually look at the people I've dated, the quality of the people and the things that I'm willing, like for example, for me with Venus square Pluto, I'm not willing to put up with bullshit anymore. Like that in the past, maybe like really beautiful girl, I might give her a little leeway, but like then I like realize like fuck that, like I'm not giving that. like, because I know, well, I mean, that also comes from like understanding female nature better and knowing that like the second you do that, they lose respect for you. But also, just not down for it just doesn't interest me, and like that's kind of one of those things. So, yeah, like the more that you kind of put your life first, Capricorn, right? The better. And it's not being a narcissist, it's not being like selfish. It's just that's like anyone that would want to be with you respects that, right? Like I respect it. um, so yeah, it's really like taking back the power. So I've definitely seen with Cancer South Node escapism, like the whole metaphor of like the crab crawling back in the shell, um, like kind of giving up on themselves too easily, and um, so it's just all about responsibility and all about kind of owning up to whatever happened, and yeah. So you get really rewarded by the universe when you make plans and stick to them over the long term, and you don't let emotions lead you, right? Because Cancer can be very moody, and um, Capricorn's all about just doing what needs to be done, no matter how you feel. Um, yeah, I've also noticed that people with Cancer South nodes, a lot of times will overeat when they're under stress. That's just kind of a random one. But yeah, so I think also with this one that there tends to be like a fear of the future. Um, like security is super important, and obviously the future is very uncertain, so there is that need to let go, right? Um, and there's like this, like yeah, so obviously Cancer rules the home, so there's this love for the home, and yeah, there can be that tendency to kind of hide from the world. Um, but um, yeah, it's just more of that kind of leaning into that energy of like no one fucking knows. No one knows. Everyone lives with a level of doubt, especially today. Um, so sometimes you just have to like meditate on something and come to peace, especially the shit that you really care about. Like come to peace. Like I told you about me and my ex. Like I could list you. I'm not going to go into it, but I could give you like a crazy list of positive attributes, and then like a few that I don't like so much, but that kind of I mean mostly good, but then all the logistical issues, and kind of how things need to be for it to work, and how things could be right now. And like I could go into that, and I could explain to you how one day I'm like thinking, okay, well I need to just move her over here to Argentina, but then the next day I'm like, well shit, like if she's here, it's gonna like how am I? It's gonna be so fucking expensive. Um, I could still do it, but then like we've broken up so many times, and like one time we broke up because she needs to have other female friends, and if she was here just with me, she'd be isolated away from her friends. She doesn't speak Spanish right now, so it's like um I would be the she'd be it's all dependent on me to be like fill all those roles, even though like I have friends here that she could be friends with. It wouldn't be the same. It's stuff like that, right? It's like that's like one of the most important things in my life, and it's changing every day. But what do I do? I'm not saying I'm a master. I just say that like I pray, and I just I almost let go and surrender into the not knowing, and I trust God. I remember times where um you know I was in a certain state of confusion, where I was in a certain state of like how the fuck are things going to be resolved? And then somehow they just were, you know? So like the question you're asking in the email has more, like it's obviously shown in everything I've been talking about, right? But then the work is internal. The work is around, there's no way to intellectualize that, right? We'll get into some other things too, but yeah. Um, yeah. So I was talking before about the importance of moon opposite Mercury in your chart, both square in the notes. Um, so let's go into this a little bit, right? Um, so it's really the conflict between thoughts, Aries Mercury, and feelings, right? Scorpio moon. So, you know, the emotions and instincts can be out of alignment with, how one interacts with the world and how one, because Aries moon is very much Aries, excuse me, Mercury is very much about making quick snap decisions. And Scorpio moon is um now this is actually a opposition where they're in different, they're not in opposite signs, which loses some power. But because it's karmic, because it's linked with the nodes, it's more about the archetypes than the signs. So I'll explain that. Basically, like the opposite sign of Scorpio is Libra or is Taurus, right? But still, in this context, it's basically just saying that there's a karmic tendency, to be overly analytical one moment, then overly emotional and irrational the next, right? And this goes with the nodes as well, with the Cancer Capricorn, right? So it's like there in psychology you call it splitting, right? Where the way to deal with that is you figure out, okay, I have this side and this side. Like for me, it's a Pisces side, my Sag, Leo, Aquarius, a lot of other side, right? My Pisces side wants to meditate and do and just like stay in and be introverted and all that. My Sag moon, Leo rising, Aquarius, Venus, and Mars side that wants to be social and dynamic and this and that, right? So there's times. So I actually like went through years of therapy. I have two masters in psychology and a lot of years of therapy that I've done where I was able to kind of see those dynamics show themselves, right? Where I was able to see like where my therapist was like, Jesse, you're splitting. You're coming from that Pisces side. You're forgetting because right now you're in. It's almost like we're very complex beings. Like imagine that you're more than one person, not like split personality, but like you have different parts of you that are that show up, right? So you know the Aries side is it can just be this push and pull, and then it's like, well, where do we meet, right? Like how do you feed both mouths? So decision making becomes very difficult, right? Like your heart saying something and then your head saying something else. Heart Cancer. I'm not going to say head Capricorn, but it is logical, right? So yeah, it can lead to a lot of anxiety too, which this I've seen this one with addiction also, right? Because it's just like back and forth, and it's like, okay, well, shit, I have this now. Maybe the answer is, because like this isn't obviously just about career, right? Because this is like first house and seventh house, right? So this is like one element, the Aries, which is like about you, first house, you're as an independent person, someone who wants to kind of think for yourself, and then the seventh house Scorpio moon is like very very. it's about, the two souls coming together, connecting, forming one, right? So yeah, I think the more a Scorpio moon is able to have someone around them, like especially romantically, that they can like say all their darkest shit to and just say whatever comes to their mind, but also have that freedom, you know, to like it's like someone like communication is so important, right? Because like having someone that doesn't take advantage of that kindness, and where there's that really solid foundation, but where there's also um that ability, like me as a Pisces, like I've dated girls who um don't have any water, right? And it's like they like me for my Sag Leo side, but then when they see the Pisces side, it's like they don't know what the fuck to do. It's in the past, right? So, learning that, you learn lessons, right? Not necessarily to follow astrology, and that like just because a girl or like someone doesn't have a certain placement, you run away from them. No, it's not like that. It's just um you kind of use your logic over time. But yeah, also I've seen this one. There can be like difficulty understanding like the feelings of other people. Um, but I don't know. I feel like with a Scorpio moon, that just kind of usually like can take that away. But yeah, there could be different miscommunications that can like moon opposite um Mercury could represent arguments that come from miscommunications. Um so it's like the key I would say is like blending the intuitive insights from the Scorpio moon. Um any Aries placements, it's good to have that energy to be able to kind of ground the energy, to not because sometimes Aries Mercury will just blurt things out. um, and yeah, just combining the two, I guess, right? I think any third house Gemini, placement, even Mars, yeah, it's like journaling is very, very powerful. Um, so yeah, so I want to say also that Sun square Uranus people, they often don't like they tend to have like they have a very, very unique life purpose. Um and and a lot of times it's like they don't necessarily find exactly what they want to do right away. Like it takes like a lot of different steps. So yeah, I've seen that show up a lot in different ways for people where the Neptune, like I said, can kind of cloud that sense of direction, but then Uranus can also add these sudden shifts and that need that like it can feel unstable, but can also be very rebellious. Like that feeling like I need to be doing something that's more in line with who I am. But there can also be this kind of paralysis that comes from the back and forth of mind versus you know emotion, right? So that's where you have to connect with your soul and ask your soul like what do I what do I want to do, if it's about career. um like what, like for me it's astrology. Like I have no earth in my chart, right? So it's like there's no other career that I can like consistently do even on like a bad day, you know um especially when I teach astrology 101. So especially when I get to do that, you know I teach people at all different levels, right? And that adds like a whole bunch of it's a really beautiful process. And like I could be having a bad day, and then I have a lesson, and it just like it reminds me why I do it. You know what I mean? And of course, these readings same. So Yeah. I think like the thing here with like the sun, you know, squaring Neptune and Uranus is that like there can be this like idealized grand purpose, but then like this paralysis around what steps it takes to try to make to get to it. And that's the thing. Capricorn North Node represents the steps, right? Any Earth North Node, Virgo Capricorn, it's like, okay, this is the goal, but it's I have to do this to get this, then this, then this, then this, and it's about kind of getting through it, right? And building that kind of real world structure and not get pulled back to the comfort zone of cancer, right? And what in the things, and what feels emotionally safe. Um, yeah. So I could say also with like the like karmically around like the Mercury moon is that there could have been this like misintegration around like yeah, the mental and emotional energies. And that could come from like avoiding having as a Scorpio moon is so deep, like the misuse of certain words or like avoiding different hard conversations, um or because that square with Saturn, feeling like you can't really be your true self or speak your true your truth, I guess, right? So with the square to Mercury, it's like learning how to articulate clearly, like really really speak to your truth and especially around boundaries. Um, and yeah, like the Scorpio moon square Saturn, like especially like Saturn in the 10th, like it's like that could be like a something passed down through the bloodline where it's like um this emotional coldness. It could even be a straight up abandonment or a spiritual like spiritual abandonment even like with Neptune square Sun too. Um, So it can be really hard to trust and open up and kind of feel safe when you have Scorpius moon already and square Saturn even more. So that could have also led to like some shyness growing up. Now there is the Mars and Gemini, but like still lots of like isolating and really wanting to kind of control everything. Um, but it can also be like a lot of emotional wisdom that comes through that, right? Um, Especially like with that mental energy that it needs clarity and it can be definitely like I said before, it can be scattered and all over the place. Like Mars 29-degree Gemini, right? Third house. Um, so there can be like overthinking, kind of like this like mental paralysis, right? But it's also very, great intelligence. So that's like why sometimes that energy can like be the jack of all trades, master of none. um, yeah. So like being able to like use that Gemini energy to like kind of go around and be like the collector of data of the world and find, okay, I'm interested in this and this, but I'm going to focus all my energy on this, you know. um that is the challenge, but that's also like the healing. Yeah, I think just like like learning, like there's a book called Nonviolent Communications, the most boring sounding book ever, and it's just boring, looks boring, but it's like such a useful book and easy to read. That from from my days in my psychology programs, I highly recommend that. Um, because yeah, there can be that real split between what you're thinking and what you're feeling, which will definitely come out in close relationships, right? So I think like with love, Pluto, Venus, and Taurus is obviously a great placement. Usually people with that are quite attractive. good auras, like, second house, money. But like I said, like it's the first house in the classes. So um Venus and Taurus likes nice things. And they care about loyalty, they care about um, you know, strong, solid foundations, someone who's going to be there, who's not going to waste time. But then, of course, like I said, the Pluto opposition brings that potential for fear, betrayal, control issues, and just basically like obsessive patterns, and just whether it's I've seen it like the opposition bring like really obsessive members of partners like that where they're the ones that have that energy, like stalkers even. um but yeah, the self-worth gets challenged through the relationships, right? And there's also themes around money too, with the eighth second that you know like I don't know if there's any inheritance or anything like that, but sometimes Pluto in the eighth house can be related to that. um Venus in the second usually is quite a good thing for like income and salary and whatnot. But yeah, I guess it would be like that need to like kind of like have one's own value very high and know what you accept and what you don't accept, boundaries again, right? um yeah, and that kind of goes further with the Scorpio moon the seventh, right, where it's like um that real emotional depth and intensity in relationships that maybe even projecting that onto lovers, right? um so it's like there's this theme in your chart of like attracting partners who kind of trigger the shadow side, um but also wanting real depth, and being able to like speak the full truth and feel very, very safe um emotionally. But yeah, like I said, like that Mercury moon opposition with the moon in the seventh is like, yeah, it's like kind of like difficulty with like expressing, what you need in a relationship, right? Like being maybe saying one thing and feeling another. But like, yeah, so your relationships are extremely karmic, and that's like where you learn your greatest lessons. A lot of times people early on, they you know, like basically like what happens a lot of times with charts like this is that they feel their karma, or like the childhood slash past life trauma in relationships. And at first they think it's the other person, but then they realize, oh shit, you know, it's not. So it goes back to that whole Capricorn thing of boundaries and taking responsibility for any decisions you make, right? But there's this interesting link between like relationships and money. I don't. It's interesting. Um, Not just money, but I've seen this a few times. This theme. I guess like you could say that like there is this desire for relationships that bring that stability that can be looked at as monetarily, but really like Taurus is not just money, right? It's also like self-esteem and values and um self-worth, all that, right? But a lot of times like when the rule of your descendants in the second, it's like you'll want somewhere where there's kind of almost like a financial compatibility, right? Or like shared priorities in that sense too. um or even like, yeah, like sometimes I've seen people with that who like want a relationship where there's either like this equal equality when it comes to who's bringing what in, or yeah, or want, or kind of want someone who has their shit together in that area. Um, but I think of it just as much as just like stability, But um, yeah, the shadow side would be like staying in relationships out of material comfort, kind of like from the fear of not being enough alone. Um, but yeah, um, it can kind of make um, like that attachment to relationships very, very strong, very linked to kind of like how empowered one feels, and different fears and traumas can kind of creep in about letting go. I think like it can be very hard to let go of a relationship, even if the writing's on the wall clearly. Now, what would be the perfect relationship for you? Well, I mean, obviously the Scorpio moon, like I said many times, needs that level of intensity. Hold on, I'm gonna get some water. Like obviously your relationships are like I said, they're your conduit to go through the darkness. That emotional death and rebirth is, all that. But I still don't think that you're just like meant to be in these like really like insanely like just purely Scorpio relationships, right? Um, it's almost like think of it relationships are like there's a foundation that's trust, loyalty, knowing each other on a deep level, right? That's like the like things like that are like the foundation. If we skip over those parts, we can still build a skyscraper, but if something at the bottom hasn't been clearly drilled in or whatever, then the whole thing, no matter how beautiful it is, can fall down easily. So that's like Taurus Venus is like let's take time, let's have a grounded relationship, like let's not rush into things. But like I guess I don't think this. Hold on, let me switch my audio for a second. That's not letting me. Well, okay, so it's not that I think this, but like there is the potential here, like on a low vibe of this chart of seeking out relationships that look, okay, I never like want to assume if someone is like, what their sexuality is. I have no idea. I just doesn't really matter. But like I just assume straight. But I don't know. But basically, like if that is the case, there would, this would be like the potential someone who might stay in relationships that, kind of feed more into that Cancer South node where maybe their needs are met on like on a survival level. Um, but there's kind of this form of projection onto them, and this it's more so like they're kind of leaning on the other person. They're not really getting their needs met. They're like what they would really really want in a relationship, but they are safe like on like a financial um level when really the chart's asking them to go towards their own goals, to go towards their own like taking the risk to put themselves out there to the world, right? Even if it's in something that like Neptune Uranus people often do something in the healing something that's a healing profession, right? But yeah, that's one potential. BRB. I guess I can just pause this. Okay. So yeah, so Um, even like Mars on the IC, that indicates like a volcanic type of childhood, where things, either like things were traumatic with the household, and a lot of times Pluto eighth house retrograde, like that could be related to some kind of trauma. Not always, but sometimes there's some type of sexual trauma with that one. I'd say more a lot of times more Mars retrograde eighth house for sure. Saturn, yeah, but like Pluto also. I mean, it just gives like it's the ultimate, like on a psychological level, it's the ultimate like soul versus ego, and letting go of attachments, letting go of the physical, leaning into like God, right? Because like really what you're asking, I'm gonna reread your question. Um, and also I want to say like, just based on like, you know, resources, friends, people who are like you, who think like you, right? Um, that like people who really like have like the same ideals and the same way of seeing life in the world and all that, it's like the same spiritual values. Like that's really important. Who you can really be yourself around. But let's just read this one more time. So please cover anything that seems relevant to how to deal with indecision. I mean, like, look, I like to like if there's a core question like that, I like to answer it, look at it a few times. Scorpio moon, Aries sun. I get it. I'm a Pisces sun, Sag moon, Leo rising, right? So we have the same. I get it. There's the part, very basic level. There's the part that wants to stay home, and like I was telling you before, right? And there's a more active part, and there's a very introverted part. Um, that's already hard, and that already involves a high level of, especially one being in the seventh and one being in the first, one representing you, your forward movement, and that being squared by that 10th house, which is like your dharma, your life purpose, um, and kind of like this back and forth indecision. And then, you combine that with the south node, potential to, you know, uh, everything we talked about, like how south node cancers can be. When it comes to not moving towards Capricorn. And yeah, it's kind of like there's one party that's active and that wants to put themselves out there, and then there's another part that is very vulnerable, right? So it's like the world is a scary place. The world is there's a lot of fucked up shit, and the Scorpio sees everything. A Scorpio moon um is able to really see it all, you know? And um yeah, so I think definitely like I hope that you are. I'm not done, by the way. I'm just saying I hope that, so basically like you gain this reading now. Most people get this reading and then they book a follow-up with current astrology. So the follow-up's like an hour where you take notes. A lot of people watch this like a few times, and then we compare your lived experience with everything I said, and we go through it step by step, right? And then after that, most people add the current astrology. I'd be down to give you a very good price for the combination of the two. But yeah, like then it's like understanding like where you're at right now and using like everything that I know, transits, progress chart, progressions, solar return chart, right? All of that, and more perfections for Daria, solar arc, to basically help understand like where one's at right now and what's ahead. Not on some like And I also do astrocartography. I do compatibility. I do everything astrology related, right? Um, but then I also, I teach astrology. I do astrology counseling sessions, and yeah, I mean, a lot of what you're asking is like it's very much in your chart, right? Moon, like the fact there's a karmic aspect. So there's always already a tendency to kind of lean into the emotions and lean into kind of what's safe. And then a moon in Scorpio square Saturn is someone who likely didn't get to feel that safety growing up. So kind of conquering one's fears and conquering any potential codependency is a massive first step in making small steps towards, because when you move towards that Capricorn, when you move towards that, things start to really happen. The universe supports you. Things kind of magically happen in that realm. And yeah, like so Venus also trine Neptune is one of the most spiritual and artistic placements. And Venus and Taurus, obviously, dignity placement. And then also, trine Uranus. And it's just like someone who could benefit so much from having a creative outlet if you have one. But then also in context of love, it just adds a lot of romance. Um, and with Uranus, it's like someone who, especially with the Mars in Gemini, it's like there needs to be an intellectual connection with the individual, with someone you be with. But yeah, like the core thing is that there's one side that the Scorpio side that wants to be like so close to someone, and then the Aries is about you doing you, and then the North Node is really also about you doing you, but in a different way. Um, so I would say like a relationship that's very stable, it's very grounded, where you have the foundation is very good, but then you have a lot of freedom also, right? You have someone who has their own life, that where the relationship isn't everything. It's not the only thing that exists. On Jupiter and Leo, we don't really talk about that. The fourth house. I mean, to me, this adds like an element of being able to smile even when life gets really, really tough. Being able, like Jupiter and Leo people are very gregarious, very charming, very they love children, and it actually enables someone, especially with like a more serious kind of like Scorpio moon, to be able to kind of find that like dig into that deep well of optimism when things get tough. So even if the childhood was tough, a fourth house, Jupiter, which Jupiter can make everything bigger, but it can also have made the childhood a very good learning experience. Or like I've seen all kinds of crazy shit. I've seen charts where like it looks like the childhood wasn't really bad, but then, like I've seen it where Jupiter like erases that, and so it actually was like like Jupiter actually like made it really good. It was just like yes, those dynamics existed. But I've also seen it where it's like the Jupiter expanded everything, like it makes everything bigger, so, and it just made everything like even worse. But like yeah, in Leo, it's just like someone who's really, really able to kind of be that inner child. And everyone with fourth house Jupiter loves large homes too. And a lot of times they like being a part of a large family. And they like to learn from their home too, right? They're the type of people that would love to like read books and learn about them about the world and philosophy, whatever they're interested in from home. So and yeah, love kind of love kids and animals. Um, I mean, look, having Juno with the North Node same degree to me is kind of like, all right, damn, that's so close. Like that makes you think that there's just a lot, especially with all the Pluto energy in your around, all the Plutonian energy around your love life. It makes me feel like there's a lot of fate in terms of who you are meant to end up with. um, Perhaps it's someone that you meet, like it's almost seems like when you follow that Capricorn North Node, you're rewarded by like a life partner, a soulmate of some sort. I don't know. I have different thought beliefs around that. Like, um, where it's like I feel like we're meant to meet we're gonna meet who we're meant to meet unless you really fuck it up. Depends person to person, I guess. But yeah, for here it's I would say like yeah, like on that pursuit towards that North Node in Capricorn, um, one would be able to meet you would be aided by that, like that would be like someone that you might meet someone like in your career, right? And even also a seventh house moon is very good for therapy, because seventh house rules clients. Um, so yeah. And like the seventh house rule by Venus in the second means that you can make money from your clients. So but yeah, like Black Moon Lilith, like on the MC, there can be like a big fear of being misunderstood, like um by the masses, or kind of like how you're seen in the world, with the career road you take, and like not being like fully accepted. But the key is like choose, authenticity over like that need to be approval, right? Um, yeah, people can definitely project a lot on people with that too. Like so. I see another thing in your chart where there can be like an obsession with self-reflection. Like self-reflection is very, very good, but sometimes people become indecisive when there's too much self. Like it's really good to like do like touch and go. Like, and that goes back to the whole thing of helping other people. Like you see people who are so I'm very introspective, but I also help other people. And I wonder, what would it be like if I was just constantly only thinking about. I'm not saying you are, but just as this idea of Black Moon and Sagittarius. There's this term I can't think of where you're thinking so far on this end, then you're thinking so my brother does it, so far on this end, and then it just like goes nowhere. Um, and that's like why like if you, in the meantime, if you're able to like work with other people and help other people, then you know it kind of like allows you to leave yourself to and to understand the struggles of other people, and to understand how similar we all are. Like a lot of people have so much shame because they think that they're different, but then they realize like damn, like the more people, like I talked to thousands of people who told me everything. And yeah, it's fascinating, when you open up to someone, um like with truth, with vulnerability. Not to say that I do this all the time, but it's part of my work. It's incredible when people trust you and don't think that you're like some like perfect looking and seeming, because it's always very surprising what people think of different people, right? Some people look at certain people who don't have their shit together at all and think that this person has their shit together, they'll never understand what I'm going through. But when you start to tell someone like, oh, like I'm really struggling with this, then they open up. Like imagine everyone doing like, I don't know, like mushrooms or MDMA or something like that. Everyone like in the world doing it at the same time. Like like some drug that like makes people just like super vulnerable and say so many things, right? Um Breaks down the boundaries. Like how similar would everyone be? Like there'd be a lot of differences, yeah, like in terms of experience, but so much more similarity than we think. And some people live their lives thinking that like there's something wrong with them, like they're the only ones that have something, which goes back to like Mercury square nodes. decoupling from the thought processes, being able to write them down and meditate and feel okay, like what's that voice? That voice, that's my this person who always used to tell me that I'm not good enough. Okay, I hear that. I'm not pushing it away, but now I know that when that voice comes up, and where do I feel it in my body? Is there something like, okay, when I walk up to talk to someone I don't know, or when I walk up to talk to a girl or something like that, do I like why do I feel, what's that feeling? Why, I don't know. When like just asking yourself why, and and then that's like why like a Scorpio moon does need alone time, and that's probably part of the confusion is that yes, it's very very interpersonal, but at the same time, it loses itself easily, especially Neptune square Sun, even the Sun in Aries loses itself easily because it's a sponge for energy. So by being able to gauge what your own energy is on your own, right? And then know, okay, my energy is 0 out of 10. Then there's negative out of 10, like when I'm alone. And there's -10 and +10, right? Not it's not saying it's just an example. It's not saying that you're 0 out of 10. I'll say the same thing to everyone. So, okay, I was around in this environment around these people, and I come back home to my own place, and I feel drained. I feel like a -4. Okay, well now I know that this environment or those people have that effect on me, or they did this time. And okay, I hung out with these people, or I was in the aura, because you have a composite chart with every human, not just romantic. You have I do compatibility readings for all kinds of people, right? Um, and I can tell that the composite chart is the energetic baby between two people. So yeah, um, I guess like um the root of the overthinking is in that spiritual and psychological split, between emotion and mind, right? Control and surrender. And the mind is like always trying to solve something that can only be felt, and it can only be felt if it's surrendered to, right? There's no solving it. Then you have the moon's for Saturn, which is like, like I said, usually feelings weren't safe. It wasn't, safe to express feelings, emotions and whatnot growing up, usually very traditional. And yeah, there can be like this guilt, or like, hanging on to some type of emotions that aren't yours. And then of course, like, yeah, with the Gemini Mars and third, like the mental hyperactivity that can come from that, right? Like just like thinking about everything, right? It's like a car stuck in the highest gear with no brakes. So it's like, how do you bring it down to a grounded state? And then of course on top of that, then there's the Neptune 10th house in square, the sun and rising, right? So it's like that confusion around identity, um, not trusting one's instincts fully. So then the mind overcompensates by scanning every option to try to find the perfect answer direction, which is never appearing, right? So I guess like from a spiritual perspective, overthinking comes from spiritual distrust, right? And it's like when the mind tries to do the job of the soul. So when there's a fear of the unknown, which is we see with the South Node in Cancer, right? We try to figure everything out in advance. That usually comes from unhealed trauma of when bad things happen that we were not expecting. Um, Also, there can be a fear of feeling, um, right? And desire, not wanting to trust our inner truth, so trying to outsource that decision, right? To either logic or you know someone else because it's too much. So your soul, decided to choose this in this lifetime, right? Because you're here to master the art of it's like comfort in chaos, feeling safe in uncertainty, knowing without knowing, and that's really the relationship with God, or whatever you want to call it, right? Like, uh, a higher power, spiritual connection, right? Through prayer, meditation, it's something that words can't explain. Sometimes, when we try to intellectualize things too much, that's the repercussions. So it's really about, yeah, trusting yourself, and trusting yourself comes from following that North Node, which isn't just about worldly success. It's about success of defining what success means for you, what feels right to your heart, and then doing what you need to do to get there, right? Because only the heart can find these answers. So yeah, I would say, like I said, creative expression is great. Something like breath work can be really good. Any type of like exercise is very good for clearing the mind. And yeah, just having like Capricorn North Node like is also about structure and routine, right? So like every time that you take grounded action, right, towards a greater goal, like something builds up. And then also just accepting that some answers only come when we least expect them in silence. So yeah, just trusting yourself that when the time comes, you'll know what to do. And yeah, yeah, I think definitely like um yeah, grounding the energy is a big part of that. Yeah, so much willpower though. So it's like, like the out of bounds Mars, right? It's just kind of like knowing, yeah, there's like a lot of trailblazing energy there, right? And remember, like these squares that I'm talking about, like the Neptune, the Uranus, like these, I always say like turning hard aspects into assets over time. Um, so like this one could start out as like very erratic and restless and just kind of doing things without thinking, but then it can also be someone who's super courageous and pioneering and passionate and able to kind of go places that other people would fear. Hmm. Yeah. So overall, I mean, I think like there's a lot of potential to be misunderstood. And how you want to express your energy. People aren't going to get, it's just how it is, right? It's like a lot of people have to come to that realization, or come to that point where it sucks, where it's like, people are probably not going to understand me, right? Or a lot of people are probably going to misjudge me. It is what it is. Um, and you have a lot of signatures in your chart of someone who can get projected on a lot. So, but like that's kind of a beauty in knowing that, where it's like, okay, well, um, like this person's reacting like this to me, but that's really more so their own insecurity or their own judgment, their own projection than anything related to me. I see that with Lilith rising and the Black and Lilith on the MC, right? So it's like very interesting because that can be like someone who's here to challenge how masculinity is defined, right? And almost like integrating like a sacred feminine energy in masculine form, and then being able to offer healing through that, right? So it's like really becoming a mirror, and especially for women, right? And women who might wrestle with their own kind of suppressed desires and whatnot. So, this is like, yeah, it's not about toning yourself down, but it's just like um learning to work with that intensity, right? But I think that's these are really good placements for someone who's working with clients like a psychotherapist, something like that, or any of those combinations, because it's like that will bring out the taboo parts of people, the things that people don't want to talk about, that people have shame about. Um, so all right, very interesting stuff. Let me know if you want to, schedule a follow up with a current astrology slash astrological weather year plus ahead, or anything. I do astrocartography, like I said. You can go on my website and see everything I do. But yeah, happy I was able to get this to you so fast. I had a few other readings ahead, but one didn't give me the birth time. The other one I just was like, okay, doing this one. So yeah, hope you enjoyed. And what else? Yeah, I feel like we really went into everything. So let me just think of anything else comes in. Yeah, take your time. Watch it as many times as you want. There's no rush. Like if you do want to, schedule that session, I highly advise it. But take your time and take notes, and yeah, make the best out of this process, because it's what's more important than understanding your astrology and really being able to reflect the kind of your lived experience back to me with everything I said. So, anyways, thank you. Talk to you later. Ciao.